Here's an apologist missing the point of a thought experiment.
As a pro-choice woman, one of my favorite arguments against the idea of life at conception or life at fertilization or life before first breath is that let's pretend there are two buildings that are on fire. One is a daycare that has 5 children in it. Another is a fertility clinic that has hundreds of thousands of fertilized eggs in it. The fire truck arrives and there's only one available. Where should they point the water? Where are we sending the water from the hose? To the daycare with 5 kids, or to the fertility clinic with hundreds of thousands of potential lives? What are we putting out first? You know we're putting out the daycare. If you were actually pro-life, that would be an impossible decision. 6 lives versus 100,000? Daycare.
Okay, I want you to notice something. According to Mrs. K, this hypothetical situation, this moral dilemma, is supposed to be an argument against human life beginning at conception. The problem is, it doesn't work, and it's actually pretty easy to see why.
He's at least right about a few things. This wasn't an argument, and using this illustration to lead us to think that life doesn't begin at conception doesn't work. But whether personhood does, on the other hand...
Just ask, how does choosing to save one human being over others prove that the ones left behind are not human?
It doesn't. It proves that upon reflection, most people realize that a fertilized egg isn't as valuable as a toddler.
I mean, let's just change the illustration. Imagine again that there are 2 fires, and I have to choose between saving my 5-year-old daughter Allison and Mrs. K and her family. Guess who I'm saving every time? My daughter. Sorry, Mrs. K. But notice how choosing to save my daughter in this situation doesn't prove that Mrs. K is not a valuable human being. That's because my decision doesn't determine Mrs. K's status as a human being. Likewise, my decision to choose to save, say, the kids in the daycare over the embryos in the lab doesn't determine the embryo status. Simply put, our behavior doesn't tell us when life begins. Science does.
Again, he's picking on the framing of this and ignoring what the obvious point of this thought experiment is. It has nothing to do with making heart-wrenching decisions between choosing to save some human persons over others. It has to do with what we take personhood to be. The reason this thought experiment is troubling to people is because deep down, many realize an obvious distinction in value between a zygote and a toddler, regardless of what they say they believe. In other words, there is an intuitive distinction between life and personhood.
Second, notice how choosing to save my daughter over Mrs. K and her family doesn't mean I made the right decision. After all, saving more lives is arguably morally better than saving fewer. But emotions have a way of overriding reason. Clearly, my inconsistency in this decision doesn't change the fact that Mrs. K is a valuable human being. In the same way, a pro-lifer choosing to save the screaming kids in a burning building over the thousands of embryos in test tubes may be super inconsistent, but their inconsistency doesn't change the scientific fact that they're all humans. This hypothetical proves nothing.
He now seems to be doubling down on the fertilized egg option, and calling the decision to save the toddlers one that's based on pure emotion. Don't miss this, because this is where consistent pro-life reasoning can lead. To the dismissal of nuance in favor of tidy black and white categories that lead to ridiculous results. This isn't the first time pro-lifers have used bad talking points to defend their views. I go over another one in this video.